It is that time of year when I am harvesting so many things from the late season garden. And if there is one thing I am passionate about, it's preserving the food that I grow. Today, I'm making some fermented cucumber pickles. Now, I like to use grape leaves for fermented cucumbers because they help to keep the pickles crunchy because of their tannins. Tannins are a phenolic compound that prevent the cucumber cell walls from breaking down, which would soften the pickles. Both with plenty of garlic and fresh dill, as well as black peppercorns and mustard seed. But to one jar, I'm going to add a little heat, and that is with a Serrano pepper and some sliced onions. I like to cut all the pieces about the same thickness, and that way everything has about the same surface area for the microbes to begin working on. In this first batch, the spicy one, I am using a crinkle cutter to make my cucumbers a little fancy before adding them to a clean jar. Fermentation is an anaerobic process, and that means in the absence of oxygen. And it uses salt to keep unwanted microbes from growing while allowing the good bacteria naturally present on fruits and vegetables to transform them into tangy and delightful condiments, and the added benefit of feeding our gut microbiome. Now, lactic acid bacteria transform simple carbohydrates into sour lactic acid. The acidic environment acts as a preservative. Now here I am weighing the jar, then I will tear out my scale, and then I will add the weight of the vegetables and the water to calculate 2%. For safe fermentation to occur, that percentage can vary between 2 and 5%, and I prefer to stay in the 2% range to give me the flavors that I like. And here we see we have 833 grams. That equals 16.67 grams, and 14 grams is a tablespoon, just to give you an idea. Lactic acid bacteria are both acid and salt tolerant, unlike the pathogenic bacteria, and these lactic acid bacteria thrive in this low pH salty environment. And I also use a glass fermentation weight. This keeps everything submerged below the salty brine, which prevents mold from forming, and that can ruin our batch. And then I add an airlock to keep the oxygen out, yet still let the gases escape. But you can even just use a lid and burp it periodically to prevent gas buildup. Now, I neglected to mention earlier that it's important to remove the blossom end of the cucumber. There are enzymes here that can make the pickle a little bit mushy during the fermentation process, and so I simply discard that and put it into the compost pile. And for the mild jar, I'm just using the mandolin to get some evenly sliced pieces. And in this batch, I'm using almost all the same ingredients, starting with grape leaves, plenty of garlic, black peppercorns, mustard seeds, the salt, cucumbers, and plenty of fresh dill. Just leaving out the serranos and the onions. And I leave them on the counter at room temperature out of direct light. I like to let things ferment anywhere between 1 and 3 weeks. I taste it quite often to hone in on the desired flavor and crunch level that I'm after. Now, I tasted these about 5 or 6 days after they began. You can see they're bubbling up. The solution has become cloudy. The crunch level is fantastic, but I want to let them go just a little longer. And so I'm covering them back up, and I'll check again in another few days. And after about a week and a half, these pickles are nearly perfect in their aroma, their crunch, pucker power, and heat level. And what better way to enjoy them than on a grilled grass-fed burger with perfectly melted cheddar cheese on charred ciabatta.